Hi everyone, hope you enjoyed this video. I've been receiving a lot of questions about my locum journey over on my Instagram, so I've included a Q&A at the end of this video to answer the most commonly asked questions. Over there, I'll also be telling you about the sponsors of this video, Skillshare. Skillshare is the learning platform for all sorts of creative skills, and I'll tell you more about them as well as the free trial they are offering you lovely people in the description below as well as at the end of the video. So see you there. Good morning everyone, I am currently in Tasmania, in Hobart, and it is day one of my first locum placement in Australia. I thought I would get the camera out, see what happened, and hopefully tell you guys a bit more about what it's like locuming. The bin man's watching me film. Bad news, it is 6:15 and I'm walking in to work, and we're finishing at 9 p.m. today, which is probably the longest shift I've ever worked. I didn't know you could have a 14-hour plus day. Good news is that they put us in accommodation, pretty nice accommodation, which is like less than a 5-minute walk from the hospital. So I'm actually already nearly there, and I'll try and check in where I can. A lot of the day will be figuring out stuff, so I'm not sure how much space that leaves for filming. Oh my god. Good morning again. I am now checking in about a week after that last introduction because I forgot how chaotic first days of studying anywhere are, and how much energy you spend just working out new systems and how everything works. And it was a really long shift, and actually probably the worst of the whole locum period so far because it was just such information overload, which is something important to note about locum shifts because anyone who's ever worked in any kind of hospital knows how much the kind of systems you're using dictate how easy or hard it is to do certain jobs. Usually healthcare software isn't the greatest, so yeah, it can be pretty stressful, especially when it's busy and you're trying to do things quickly. So that's what happened at that shift, hence I didn't get to vlog anything else, but thought I'd show you a bit more about what I'm doing today. Hopefully it's a little bit more relaxed now that I know what I'm doing. The day begins at 7 a.m. when we meet up with the night team and take a handover of any overnight new admissions or issues that we need to know about. I'm working in the trauma and surgical unit, and we are responsible for admitting acutely unwell or trauma patients who require surgical management in the hospital. The day begins with a ward round where we see all the new admissions as well as any pre- or post-operative patients. This includes a huge variety of patients, for example, those with inflamed appendices or gallbladders who have had or will have them removed, blocked or twisted bowels, infected abscesses that need incision and drainage, and because this is a trauma centre, we also have a lot of patients who have been in driving or sporting accidents or in a fight and need surgical management for damaged organs or bones as a result. Our sickest patients are in the intensive care unit or ICU. This is where we usually have patients whose surgical pathology or injuries from their trauma is currently or potentially life-threatening and so requires increased monitoring and support. Next, we thankfully take a break from racking up our thousands of steps from the ward round and catch up with the jobs over coffee. Definitely my favourite part of surgical ward rounds. We divide up the ward jobs between us and get discharge medications and paperwork sorted, whilst reviewing any unwell patients on the ward, such as this patient who was spiking a temperature after having bowel surgery, so I took bloods to look for any signs of infection and then arranged a CT scan to look for any leaks in the bowel. Just finishing up some jobs on the ward. One of them is something I've done pretty regularly since starting this job, which is a tertiary survey. So luckily there's like a nice little booklet which tells you everything to do so you don't miss anything. And essentially what a tertiary survey is if someone comes in with a trauma, so car accident or a stabbing or anything traumatic like that, that could have caused multiple injuries, you have to review them 3 times: primary survey, secondary survey, tertiary survey. Tertiary survey main aim is to just find any injuries that you might have missed. some injuries that might take a while to declare themselves, and that might be more obvious now. After completing that for a patient who had fallen off their motorbike the day before, I managed to grab a quick bite and then was asked by my registrar to come and help see some patients in the emergency department who had been referred to the surgical team. One of the patients I saw in the ED had abdominal pain and had not opened her bowel for several days. Usually this suggests bowel obstruction, which may be as a result of a cancer or some adhesions in the bowel, but on this occasion we saw intussusception on the scan. This is where some of the bowel telescopes in on itself, something we usually see in children rather than adults, so that was quite interesting. After this, one of the consultants called for some help in the emergency theatre as the registrar was busy admitting patients in the ED. After getting hopelessly lost in this new hospital, I finally arrived to theatre, but at that time the consultant had already found a registrar. So probably worth, wow, it's very echoey in here. Something to consider about locuming is that obviously you're not like a trainee or employed by the hospital, you're just kind of passing through, so there's not as much of an emphasis on providing you training and teaching. So when that comes to surgery, obviously a lot of people are going to get priority over you to go to theatre. So yeah, that's probably a downside, or not really a downside, just something to know about locuming, especially in surgery. Having said that, the team has been super helpful in terms of teaching us how to do stuff, as well as just teaching us on the job, as most seniors do, so no complaints, but just something to know about. After handing over a few things to the evening team, it's thankfully home time, and off I go. Just got home from a pretty respectable day, it wasn't too bad at all, and I thought I'd show you about the whole living kind of side of locum life, which I didn't really know about before I started applying for jobs. And essentially they our agency or the hospital or someone have paid for all our accommodation while we're here. They've arranged it all as well, so we literally just had to turn up, and it's pretty nice, like slightly messy at the moment, but it's a nice kind of hotel room right in the middle of Hobart, literally a 5-minute walk from the hospital, which makes such a difference. It's so convenient, and they organised it all, booked it all, and yeah, it's pretty nice. I'll show you round. So this is kind of the bedroom space. Excuse the suitcases. Another very real part of locum and traveling life is you're always living out of suitcases, which can get annoying. Got a nice little table thing, a little smoothie that I just picked up because why not. Nice TV and slightly messy kitchen, but pretty reasonable, and little sitting space here with the sun coming through now. So yeah, not only did they pay for the accommodation for the whole time we're here, they've also paid for our flights into Tasmania and also out of Tasmania to our next travelling stop, which is crazy, and not accommodation, and transport from the airport to here as well. So that's pretty cool. Like I said, I literally had no idea that this was part of the deal. So if you're thinking about locuming in Australia, make sure you're asking about these things, because I'm sure it will vary between job to job and agency to agency, so always worth asking the questions. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly answer a few of the most commonly asked questions I've been having on my Instagram about my locum work. Please feel free to follow me there if you want more real-time updates on what I'm up to. The most commonly asked question by far was how to get locum work. Firstly, you need to have full APRA registration. So when you're coming over from another country as an international graduate like I did, you usually start off working as a kind of provisional licensed doctor. So you have your provisional license for a year, and after working for that full year, or 47 weeks I think it is, you are able to apply for your full APRA registration, which is what I did, and with that you can then apply for locum work. When you have that sorted, the next thing is to find some locum jobs, and I found the best way is through locum agencies. I don't know if there's ways of directly doing it with the hospital, but everyone I know, and the only way I've really heard of this happening is through agencies. I would strongly recommend going through more than one agency, just because you've got a broader range of jobs, you've got a backup in case the communications or your agent's not so good with one agency, then you've got another one to fall back on. That's exactly what happened to me. I went with 2 agencies in the end, and with one of them a lot of issues arose with communication and things. whereas the other one managed to respond pretty quickly and get jobs sorted quite quickly. So that worked out for the best. In terms of which agencies, there are tons to choose from. You'll find loads just from Googling, from asking around. Best way to get recommendations is obviously from people you're working with once you get to Australia. There's also a great Facebook group, which I'll link in the description below, where people are always chatting about agencies and their experiences with them. There is tons of paperwork. Most of it you'll hopefully be able to get quite easily. Your APRA registration, criminal checks and things, the agency will guide you through it. One thing to be mindful of is that you need references to send to the agencies, and most of them require 2 or 3. I think both of mine required 3. So that is consultants and senior doctors, like registrars that you've been working with most recently. This would be the main reason I'd say to stick to probably 2 or 3 maximum locum agencies, because they all require their own references and your referees might not be too keen on doing tons and tons of references for you. After all of that paperwork has gone through, then you can start asking your agencies for work. So be very specific in what you want in terms of area, departments you want to work with, types of shifts you want, and of course your dates that you want as well. But before you agree to anything, make sure you've asked all the questions about exactly where you'll be working, your pay, the kind of support structure, etc. Otherwise, there are some horror stories of ending up in very understaffed places or extremely remote places with little to no support, so make sure you do your research before agreeing to a job. Next most common question was definitely about the pay. So locum pay varies a lot. It depends on lots of factors, what seniority you are willing to work at, what locations you're working at. Sometimes there's differences between weekends and night shifts compared to normal day shifts. So again, make sure you ask all of these questions. I'm just going to go look through my emails to give you a rough idea of the range for the kind of jobs that I was applying for. So I was keen to stick to RMO jobs, so that's a resident job, rather than stepping up to equivalent of a junior registrar such as a PHO. Although skills and experience wise, at 4 years post-graduation now for me, that would probably make sense. In a locum environment, I'm a little bit more hesitant to step up. Obviously you're not as well supported, you're not being directly trained or mentored, so I think it's a lot more comfortable and a lot more safe for me to be at an RMO level job. So hourly rates that I've been quoted for these kind of RMO level jobs have ranged a fair bit. There's one in New South Wales for $110 an hour, another one for $130 an hour. Then there's one somewhere where I'm guessing it's probably a lot more rural, because the rate is $150 an hour, and for nights $180 an hour. Obviously higher pay is great, but make sure you definitely do your research if the pay looks a little bit too good to be true. This is probably the higher end of the spectrum, around 180. I think I've also seen 200 floating around somewhere per hour. The next question was, why did I decide to locum? Now, I feel like what you want from your life is always changing depending on what you're prioritizing at the time, but I've learned that some fundamental things that I want to kind of carry through as much as I can is autonomy and flexibility with my time. And locum life really affords you that. You can choose when you want to work, how long, where, and most importantly, exactly when and how long you want to take your leave. This type of lifestyle is really important to me currently, because as I've mentioned in previous videos, I'm trying to use this year to explore other interests outside of medicine, and for that I really have to thank the sponsors of today's video, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning platform where you can learn all sorts of creative skills from any one of their thousands of classes. Recently, I've been dabbling in the podcasting world and checked out this video by John Lagomasino on how to make a podcast, where he covers everything from planning an episode, how to record it, edit it, and get it ready for launch. So watch this space, I guess. There's tons of other classes to choose from graphic design to photography, and even to how to look after your plants. So there really is something for everyone. The best thing is you can get involved straight away for completely free, because Skillshare have given me a link that I can share with you. You can find it in the description box below, and the first 1,000 people to click on that link will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So go ahead and check it out. It's such a worthwhile investment in yourself, and you've literally got nothing to lose. Let me know which classes you try. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.